the food. Okay, so we need to clarify a point. For those of you who were here yesterday, you'll remember I was on stage stamping on my name tag saying we don't need this anymore. And some of you took that literally. Some of you chucked it in the bin. Others were waving it around, set on fire. No. We didn't need the name badge for the movie yesterday. That was free and open to the public. But you do need your name badge. And you'll know that I've got it the wrong way round as a demonstration of how not to do it. So make sure your name is on display. And let's get going on a good start with our name badges around our neck in place. So, quick sponsor video before our panel.
There is something special that happens when believers come together to ignite creativity, to share their craft, to encourage and inspire. Join us at the Ark Encounter for Spark, a gathering of believers from the themed entertainment, theme park, museum, theatrical production, and creative industries. Veterans in these creative industries will share of their journeys in these fields, along with fellowship and behind-the-scene tours at the Ark Encounter Creation Museum and Answers in Genesis Design Studio. Spark, igniting creativity for kingdom impact.
Good morning. My name is Doug Weiss. I'm not with Spark or the Ark Encounter, but I'm here to share with you this morning about ICVM. ICVM is the International Christian Visual Media Conference. I'm curious, how many people here have attended ICVM before? Great, yeah. So I'm excited to share with you about our upcoming conference. It will be in Orlando, Florida, October 1 through 4, and love to invite you to come. It's very much similar to just this event as well. So there's opportunities to interact with filmmakers from around the world, have a meal together, eat lunch and dinner together, learn from each other, and see some great films. People come and share the projects they're working on. Also, one thing that's unique with ICVM is the pitch-a-thon. You can come, bring your scripts for undeveloped projects, and pitch your projects to distributors. And also, if you have a finished film series, you can come and show that as well to distributors. So, love to see you guys there, October 1 through 4 in Orlando, Florida for ICVM.
Two quick things before we go into our panel. Number one, social media. The hashtag is CWVFF25. This film festival and the year, CWVFF25. Go on social. Secondly, on our screens in a moment, you are going to see a QR code. There it is. If you scan the QR code, you'll be able to ask questions. If you're just joining us, how it works is you can ask your questions and then you can vote it up or down. If you see a question that you really like, that you want presented to the panel, give it a thumbs up. If you see one you don't like, give it a thumbs down. Thank you very much.
Good morning. All right, so good to see everybody here this morning. Thank you for choosing our panel out of all the options you had today. I've got some great people here with me, and we might have one more person join us, and if not, we will do our best to answer the questions that come in, and we already have a whole bunch coming in. That's awesome. I'm here with Justin Tully and Judy Groders, and they are extremely experienced producers. They've done way more projects than I have, which is always exciting because I get to learn from them along with you. And yeah, just fire away your questions. We're talking about producing, which is a pretty big umbrella. So we're just going to get started. We'll get through as many questions as we can and hopefully have a good time together. So questions. We've got 13 thumbs up on this first one. What % of producing is paperwork versus creative work?
I would say 83.7% is, for me, I'm more of a logistical producer, so a majority of what I deal with is the paperwork. Creative is great, but to get it actually done, yeah, it's more of the...
Sometimes you have to get creative with the paperwork.
That's correct.
Well, there are certainly producers that lean more into creative and maybe, oh, wait. There we go. No? And again. Good. Okay. Good. Well, there are producers certainly in the world who lean heavily into and toward and around creative, spend their time around creative. Like Justin, that's not me. I have the benefit of being married to and working closely with somebody who's very creative, my husband John, who many of you heard from last night. But my work is dominantly, it's like an operations job. He's telling me to keep the mic close to my mouth. I lean heavily into operations, and so my creative is very little. I defer to John on all creative decisions, and so mine is much higher than 83.7. But the question was paperwork, and as leaders of people, it's essential that we are engaging with those people and supporting those people. So it might be 80% paper when I'm in the office, but then I feel daily compelled to be on the set and in the production office and in support of those who are doing the work. So paperwork and relational versus I'm not so much in creative.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously there's different phases of production, pre-production. There's a lot of building relationships. There's a lot of figuring out problems. Lots of different things go in. So, how do you exactly define paperwork? But, okay. If you could go back to the beginning of your producing journey and do something different, what would it be? Wow, that's a great question. I know that the approach, how you approach something is very important. And for me, the character development was very important. Learning to trust God with the choices that I needed to make and not just going out and trying to make things happen on my own was something that was very instrumental in how I got to work on films and to where I've gotten to today. Serving, things like that. So there's definitely, during the time leading up to when I got into film, I wish I had spent more time developing character and serving other people in ways that would have just enabled me to be that much further ahead. And personally, I wish I hadn't wasted as much time on stuff that didn't matter. So that would be how I would kind of answer that.
Yeah, I think I would echo that. You spend a lot of time when you first get into the industry just trying to learn everything. So I was all me focused, I think, when I was on projects, and missed a lot of ministry opportunities there. And so my career really didn't start taking off until I took a back seat, started seeking the Lord more, and it just seemed like He brought the opportunities, put me where I needed to be, so I could serve others. So I would echo what you said.
I think synchronous with that is I wish and continue to invest in learning about leadership. Producing, the mechanics of producing seemed pretty obvious to me, and learning the tools of the craft and learning learning about process and finances and general communication skills, but leadership skills are kind of a whole different thing. So how to equip and enable and help, enable people to grow in their lives and in their positions, and also recognizing that in the case of John and me, we believe firmly that putting our marriage and our lives on display for everyone in the crew, and our crews tend to be, sometimes they're exclusively believers and often they're not. We're producing all over the world. And so putting Jesus on display through our marriage, through our engagements with people, through our work is really important to us. And that's something we've learned over time. I certainly didn't come into it with that awareness.
Yeah, and what she said as well, I'm just taking both of their ideas and trying to make them my own. I think it's wonderful to think, like when I first met the Kendricks, one of the first things they asked me is, what do you need to do to be successful at your job? And that is a fantastic approach to producing. You look at the people that are working with you and then enable them to be really successful. And so if you can basically teach people how to fish, you catch more fish.
That's good. I also would recommend to my younger self, it's like to really push into something that I try to do, which is learning from other people before I try to do things myself, trying to observe, watch, and engage with other people, serve other people in what they're doing and what I want to do. It's a great way to learn. And our next question goes right into that. It says, what skills should young producers build? We've already touched on that a little bit, but I think there's a lot of skills that are needed. Anybody want to take a first shot at that?
Communication. You know, being able to articulate what you need, how to do it, is key. Also, just thick skin, like humility. You know, be quick to forgive, slow to offend. I think would be something that you can do right out of the gate.
Can you repeat the question?
What skills should young producers build?
Okay. I think it's really important to understand everybody's job. How can I equip you if I don't understand what you're doing or what kind of challenges you might encounter? I couldn't pull focus to save my life, but I understand the significance of that role, and it's really important to me that our films are in focus. And so getting to understand that job, and quite literally every other job on the set. And so whether it's through hands-on experience or just getting to know over lunch or during pre-production while they're prepping gear, you know, my work of investing in getting to know the roles and the positions is something that has been very valuable to me over time. Hi, Stephen. Hi.
Good morning. We just had a men's discipleship group, and so I apologize for being late.
So the question that we're working on is, what skills should young producers build? You have any thoughts on that?
Humble yourself before the Lord and serve. I would say you need to be willing to ask, seek, and knock. You're praying a lot. You're going to have to ask a lot of people to help you. In order to recruit all those names that are in your credits, because you're going to have some no's, I'm not available. But I would say you have to be shameless in praying and then saying, what I say to people is, if I believe a project is God's will, is I'll call them and I'll say, hey, and they're always going to be busy. God always chooses busy people because they're being faithful where they are and they're working hard where they are. He's not finding lazy people to recruit. So you're going to be recruiting people that are already busy working on other things. Those are the people you're going for. And so you're going to say, hey, I know you're busy. It's the beginning of the conversation. But we've got a project this coming fall, and here's what it is. Would you get with your spouse, or if you're single, get with just you and Jesus, you know, and would you pray about coming and helping us on this project? And then I just leave it with them, and I'll let the Lord work on them. But I have that same conversation a bazillion times. I also don't beat down the door and make them feel guilty for saying no, or if God tells me to do something different, because the Lord will provide what we need. But you have to ask a lot of people to help in order for you to get a project to completion.
I'm going to just quickly piggyback that, and this is a little bit generational, but learn to pick up the phone. Whether you're calling or receiving a call, I don't mean to be overly critical here, but that is emerged as a challenge, both as we're coaching upcoming talent and trying to engage with them. So I wouldn't have said that 10 years ago.
It's amazing how quickly things are changing. Okay, our next question. What should producers be doing on set during production?
I think There's a lot of things, a lot of minutes during the day. So first, you look for potential problems. You're constantly surveying, thinking what could slow us down, what could derail us, and then just walking around, chatting with your crew, finding out what their morale is, finding out what their needs may be. Everyone on that film wants that film to be as good as it possibly can because their name's going on it. So it should never in your head be an us versus them mentality. It should always be a what can I do to help lift their burdens? So, and if you've done your job well in prep, usually the on-set stuff, you have time. If you haven't done a good job during prep, then you're walking around putting out fires constantly. And fires happen even when you're very prepared. So the more you can do during prep, when you're actually on set and you're physically in production, the more that you can serve your crew.
I really, again, to piggyback that, the preparation is key to that. And kind of if my preparation is as good as it can be, and we've been able to recruit a really competent crew, the strongest evidence of that is when people wander up to me and say, it's so nice that you get to travel with your husband when he's working. and, and that happens a lot. You know, so when we're in a small, less skilled crew, I could be sweating, and certainly I'm always within reach as a backstop, but if things are going very well, I might even wander down the street to a coffee shop and start working on the next project. But the walkie's always there, and everybody on the crew knows I'm a backstop within reach.
I didn't know what a producer was when we started working on Facing the Giants, and I was the producer. And so I was like, all right, I get to be the producer. What is that? I actually read a Hollywood book from a producer who'd produced multiple movies, and I realized he didn't know what a producer is supposed to do. So basically, a producer is a get-it-done leader who helps a project from beginning to get completed, hopefully on time, under budget, with excellence. So getting things done, moving the football down the field, whether you end up doing the work, or you get volunteers to do the work, or you hire somebody to do the work, that's a producer's got to get things done. So when you have no money, you're recruiting volunteers, and you're doing the work yourself. As projects progress and more money comes in, you can start hiring people and paying them what they deserve to be paid in order to get that job done. But whatever you don't equip and delegate, it's going to end up falling on your shoulders. So my dad was an excellent leader, and he taught me. He ran a Christian school with multiple campuses. And what he said is, I delegate everything. I train up and delegate everything from beginning to end to other people. And then he focuses in on serving the people that he's leading, making sure they have the direction, the resources, and then he puts out the fires they cannot put out, which is what Moses' father-in-law trained him to do. He's burning himself out. And he says, you got to train up, delegate, and then you handle the things they can't handle. So what I do is I recruit really, really good leaders, like those two guys right there, they're like my first calls when I'm working on movies. And I'm like, would you please, David Cook, please, I know you're busy, but would you come in? And I ask these guys if they'll come help me. And then you delegate everything away. And then I focus in on loving on Justin and David, serving them, their families, taking really good care. Don't get in their way. Don't micromanage your team. Early on, I micromanaged people. I would delegate things to them, and then I'd be like, well, that's not the way I want to do it. Here, let me do that for you, like that. And then they're like, I'm not even needed, So you got to trust them, support them, encourage them, coach them along, and then you put out the fires that they can't put out.
This is so much fun. So one of the things I've noticed, and we know this, but it bears repeating, leaders set the tone for everybody else on the crew. So as a producer, when you're on set or off set or anywhere else, from pre-production all the way through, you're helping set the tone along with the rest of the leadership team, and that's going to affect how everybody interacts, how their experience goes, all these different pieces. So just a reminder that you want to be an encourager. Like, all of these things we've been talking about are encouraging and doing these things, but just remember, you're setting the tone for the whole rest of your team.
Let me mention one thing, David. I know the original question was, what are you going to be doing on set? So walking around, it says in Proverbs, be diligent to know the state of your flocks, and then shepherd them well and look well to them. Be diligent to know their state. So I spend a lot of time during productions walking around from department to department saying, how are you? How are things going? And they may say, my hotel room has cat pee on the carpet, which we had on War Room. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And I quickly jump on that to try to help this person. That's a private need for them, but I want to take good care of them because you're on our team. And they may say, so-and-so is sick on our team. I may find out, not from one of my producer heads, they may not know. I may find out from a PA what's going on. But to quickly, as the Lord drops the flaming monkey in your lap of the day, you're like, oh, I was not expecting this, that you respond with prayer and kindness and you jump on it and you start solving problems. But just walking around, how you doing? Thank you for being here. How can I pray for you? You're just serving people as if you're the servant, because you are a servant. That's how Jesus operated. He served his disciples. He served the people that he was leading. So walking around and just asking, how you doing? How can I pray for you? Is there anything I can do for you? It's constantly coming out of my mouth all day long on set.
Okay, next question. Can you explain the difference between executive producers and associate? Is one a manager and the other a funder?
Your executive producers are typically from the distribution company, will slap on some titles, or they're funding, or they unlock the door to funding. Your associate producers are typically somebody that's helped unlock a door that you couldn't get to, like maybe either with locations or a cast member or some product placement or something like that. It's more of a very large thank you credit to somebody that you probably couldn't have made your movie without.
Well put.
All right, next question. How do you come by funds for producing movies?
That's proprietary information, and
Well
I don't
put.
appreciate the tone of that question.
I can tell you, you start out by praying and
Yes.
making sure that you have the right project. And if you have the right project, then you start praying that God will provide the resources you need for that. And so much of this is relational. And so you're going to be making connections with the right people, and they may not be the person that funds your movie, but they may be able to help you make that next connection to the person who can. And if nobody wants to fund your movie, you need to go back and work on your story some more or come up with a different story. So that's just a baseline.
That's one of the ways we know something is God's will, is because as we're asking, seeking, and knocking, we're praying, we're gathering information, we're asking for help. If the Lord is in it, he will open the door, there's the permission. He will send the resources, there's the provision, and then he'll give us a peace, Colossians 3:15. And those three things, permission, provision, and peace, help us to know, make a movie about prayer as opposed to this dumb idea you have about time travel. When the Lord is in it, he opens that door. So if he does not send the provision, just like David said, it either means not now or not ever.
John and I talk often in terms of headwinds and tailwinds. And sometimes we feel the tailwind because pragmatically things are coming together. Sometimes it's a feeling that comes from the Holy Spirit. And so we rely on that, and we choose not to live in fear, because the Bible tells us not to. And so if we're feeling the tailwind, but the pragmatics aren't falling into place, but the Holy Spirit's telling us move forward, we leap.
I would say your faithfulness on the small things will give you favor and open doors on the next things. So it was being faithful with tiny little shorts that caused people to say, if you can produce this 10-minute short that is so powerful and life-changing, I'm willing to invest in a feature film. But people are going to be looking in your rearview mirror to see, are you being faithful with what you've already been entrusted with? Scripture says, if you've been faithful over a few things, I'll make you ruler over many things. And so steward well the $100 that you have, whatever it is, and let God bless that and use that to open the next door for you and then the next door. And so every project for us, the $20,000, which felt like 20 million, for Flywheel, but we had to pray in that money and steward it well, and it turned into a theatrical movie that was changing lives. Then we got in the prayer tower at this church, right down that hallway, and Alex and I said, Lord, if you want us to make Facing the Giants, would you send the $100,000 that we need? And the Lord started prompting believers who had wealth to contact us saying, can I invest in another movie? Here's $20,000. And that was one of the indications that the Lord was in it. But they were moved because they saw what God did through Flywheel. So whatever level you're at, people want to call John Groders because they see a track record of faithfulness. And so that's why he's got all these people, would you work with me on this? Everybody's lining up because they see faithfulness in the past. So those resources are going to come with that. So be faithful with what you've got right now. Pray, and it's okay to ask people to support. Don't put guns to people's heads. If you really love orphans, you'd support my orphan movie. Don't do that. Do not try to guilt people into doing God's will. The Holy Spirit can turn their hearts. You don't need to be the Holy Spirit. So I will pray and I will ask and I will not put pressure on people. And then I just trust the Lord. And then he will move their heart if he's in it. And sometimes they will give more than you would have asked for because of how God moves them.
All right. Next question. What was the most difficult experience you've had as a film producer? And I'm just going to lead off by saying, usually we can't talk about those. So what's the most difficult experience that comes to mind that you can talk about?
I'm sorting through them. I need a minute. I think letting someone go is not fun. It's as much as people think I like it. Nope. That's probably it. Having to take somebody and remove them from a project because of the circumstances that they're not either ready for that role or they just aren't listening. I think that's a difficult experience. Actually, that I can't talk about, one of the most difficult experiences I've had on a film. I remember calling Stephen about this. I was driving to a film and I felt like, early on in my career, I would just, pray and I'm like, God, just make me excited. And I know you want me to do this film. And so I started, and I would kind of like, well, he didn't give me a no. That was kind of how I led. I was like, hey, you didn't give me a no. I'm driving towards this film. So one day I'm driving towards this film and I felt like the Holy Spirit told me, he was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm going to go make this Christian movie. And he was like, I didn't tell you to do that. And so I'm driving, and then I go pale. I'm like, oh no. I'm like halfway there. It's, like a 6-hour trip. And I call Stephen, and I was like, hey, so I'm heading to this movie, and I don't know if God wants me to work on it now. And he was like, well, one of two things are going to happen. Either you're going to go there and have a really uncomfortable conversation, and it's not going to be fun, and you're going to leave the project, or God will remove you from the project. And number one's way better. And so I went there, and I spoke to the lady that had called me, and I was like, listen, I ran ahead of God on this, and I'm not saying you're not supposed to make your film, but I'm just saying that I don't think he wants me on it. So either he's got somebody else for you, or, I'm not, again, you pray, you seek, but I'm not supposed to be here. And it was very uncomfortable, and, she, was crying, and I was praying for her, and I left. But you know what? When I left, I had a peace. I felt like God was like, well done. But yeah, that was very uncomfortable during the time.
Another thing that's challenging when you're producing is the things that you can't control. It doesn't need to be challenging in that we all know in our heads that we need to trust God, but it doesn't make it easy in the moment. You have to make hard decisions. You don't have a lot of time. Weather can come in. Any number of things can happen. A lead actor can get sick. So those are definitely challenging times that come to mind as well. But it's opportunities to see God shine. And what I remind myself of when I'm in a difficult situation that I don't have an answer to, it's that God is not surprised by the situation I'm in. So he has a solution, and I just have to find it. And that at least allows me to change from can we do something to what can we do in the situation.
I would say that making movies is extremely difficult, and people watch movies. That's not extremely difficult. To sit in a cushioned chair in an air-conditioned theater with popcorn in your lap and enjoy the finished product, you're like, I want to do this one day. You don't want to do that, you know, because climbing Mount Everest is extremely difficult. And so I tell people when we're recruiting them and recruiting volunteers, I'm like, you're imagining this as like going on vacation with friends, and we want this to be a pleasant experience for you. You need to be thinking, I'm going to war. Because in war, you're separated from your family, you're awake at weird hours, you're moving heavy gear and equipment, and somebody's trying to kill you. Okay? And so that's kind of like what production's like, okay? Because the devil hates us. So we tell people, we have spiritual warfare on all of our movies. As soon as we try to make a movie about discipleship, here's what happens. Your marriage will suddenly go under attack right before you show up on set, and you'll wonder what is happening. You might get weird illnesses that have just shown up at the most inopportune times. People who usually are friends start fussing and fighting. Weather changes can happen. You know, there's just, I could list, you say most difficult. I'm like, well, which category? We've had health issues that were difficult, weather issues, budget issues, diva actors and actresses who think they're more important than everybody else, you know? And you have big egos and incredible insecurity, you know, together in these people. And trying to work with them and love them and help them do a good job and deal with all of their issues. And so there's a big whole swarm of things. In Courageous was a difficult movie to make because of how hot it was and how many people were involved. And there were so many volunteers and so many professionals and so much that was going on. That was the hardest movie for me of all the ones that we did. We try to end every project walking around to the department heads saying, what do we do right? What do we do wrong? You know, how can we do better next time? And I'm taking notes, and I'm going to use that to change the next project, what we work on, so hopefully we can lower the stress level. But just know, it is like going to war, and you need to be prayed up, rested up, geared up, and plan for margin. Have extra money. Justin is so good at adding contingency money in our budget just in case, because you may need it. And then David is really good on thinking through the logistics of schedules and people and resources. And sometimes we'll sit down with David and we're like, okay, here are the options. David's like, if we do this, here's how much it's going to cost us. Here's what it's going to do to your crew. And here's what it's going to do to the schedule. If we do B, here's how much. And when he lays all that out, we're like, you're brilliant. You're a genius like that. But it's clear we need to do C of all these options based upon all the calculations and all the prayer that we've done into this. But you got to plan on margin. A lot of times people have no money in their budget, no time in their schedule. They're grinding everybody to powder. They're trying to save money, and they're working people 14, 16-hour days. I know people in this, I think they're in this room, who were working on a Christian project working 20-hour days. Now, you'll leave that project with PTSD, and you could die. Do not do that to your crew. So be prayed up and make sure you're in God's will, and be very gracious and considerate of the sheep that you're leading.
The other risk in that situation is mutiny, which hasn't happened to us, but there have been threats of it. So being sensitive to people's tolerances and what's appropriate. The example I'm going to share is if you went to John's Directing 201 yesterday, you heard him preach about preparation. And as a director, he is exceptionally disciplined in his preparation. There was a time a number of years ago when we had booked a studio. We were going to do a massive 360 green screen project. And we had booked the studio a couple months in advance. And then we were at a conference, and I got a call from the studio that said, we've got a big show coming through here. They want to run it for 6 months. We need to book you in 2 weeks. We're rebooking you for 2 weeks. Now, given our project schedule, we had to take that booking. We only needed it for 10 days. And so we were not prepared. And we were doing logistics on the fly. The art department was building props as we were arriving. Our crew wasn't the crew we had intended to book. And looking back, I'm not sure how I'd do it differently apart from, I certainly would never accept that 2 weeks out booking date. I would find another studio. I would do something different. But that lack of preparedness was difficult for everybody. And I've never worked in a space, and everybody knew we were prepared, and everybody was critical of our production. And now the end product, it worked out. We got it done. But those 10 days were hard, I think, literally for every single person on set. It was a hard stretch there, and a great learning experience.
All right. The next question, what is the best way to get into producing?
I think for me, it was, I wasn't good at anything else. No, I had a ton of jobs before that. You look for all the jobs that will make everybody's jobs easier, like things that, people don't like doing. You get really good at those. And whoever you're working for, work is unto the Lord. And so whoever my immediate boss was coming up, I would deflect all credit, just like I deflect all praise to the Lord. I would defect. Yeah, I cheated. I left. No, I would deflect all credit to them. So no matter what it was, I'd be like, oh well, they showed me how to do that, or oh yeah, I just took their lead. So them hearing that, number one. On a lot of, especially in the secular industry, there's a lot of fear. They're scared for their job. They're scared you're coming to take their job. And if you can ease those pressures and, they start getting the praise for it, they're going to be like, man, I like that guy. I'm going to show him how to do this. So don't glory seek. And God just opened those doors.
Yeah, I would say serve with a good attitude. Justin showed up on Fireproof, valedictorian at Full Sail Film School, and he said, how can I help you? To me. And I didn't know that much about filmmaking, so he was my film school. At the same time that he's teaching me about what a call sheet is and production coordinator and locate, all that stuff I didn't know. And Justin shows up. He didn't humiliate me or speak down to me. He said, how can I help you? And then he said, and you don't have to pay me to work on this movie. I'm like, you're a dream.
Yeah, so but in what I got from it, like we would be, in the production office till like 11, 12, just, trying to get everything lined up. And he would just stop and just open the word and look at me and be like, hey, look what it says right here. So he started pouring this spiritual wisdom to me. So if you have people that are supporting you, pour into them as well.
But show up willing to work hard. And when you're on those lower levels especially, show up early, grind it out with a cheerful attitude, be easy to work with, unflappable. One of the things about David is pretty unflappable. The world could be on fire and David's like, well, this is an opportunity. And that's the guy you want in the boat, not the guy that's like, Jesus, we're dying, So David is asleep in the boat during the storm, He's one of those kind of guys. And so, but be a pleasant person to be around and show up early. We could tell you, as soon as I say Dave Svensson, we're like, here's a guy who shows up and is a fountain from the moment he pulls into the parking lot until he leaves. And he's just like, I'm so grateful to be able to serve you guys and work along with you. And he's busting it and doing a good job, and everybody gets blessed around him because of how he works. And so Alex Dania is back there. She's worked on feature films. She showed up on helping us on The Forge. and hurt her ankle and is pushing herself around in a little, whatever you call that thing, a scooter, but showed up every day with a great attitude, working hard, dependable. And when we were done, it's like, man, I hope I get to work with her again. And if you show up like that, because here's what happens behind the scenes. We'll have conversations on, do we hire this guy or this guy? And we're like, well, this guy costs a little bit more, but man, he's great to work with. I just want to hang out with him for 6 weeks. This guy can do the work and he's going to cost us a little less, but he's going to add so much stress, and we're going to have to deal with the wine and cheese every day that comes out of his mouth. I'm willing to pay more for this guy because they're a fountain. So be that kind of guy.
Just to echo that, we had a studio shoot. We have a small studio in our facility. And we had a studio shoot one day, and one of our employees said, my niece is finishing up college. Can she come PA? Sure, that's fine. I'm not going to pay her, but yeah, bring her along. And Shelby showed up, and from the moment she arrived, she had a big smile on her face, and she was a servant. And whether it was getting coffee for anyone and everyone on the set, or at her own initiative, emptying the trash, sweeping the floor, she served us. And at the end of that shoot, John and I looked at each other, and did you notice Shelby? Yeah, I noticed Shelby. A week later, she was on our staff. And she brought that attitude. Now, as a producer who has worked my way through the ranks and has a great deal of experience, that servant attitude is absolutely essential throughout the entirety of your tenure. And being willing to bring coffee to, we filmed in Korea a few years ago, and I remember watching some of in the Korean culture, making eye contact with a superior or somebody who's older than you is really generally forbidden. Now, there's some Koreans around here. I don't know if I assume you would affirm that. And so what we found, just culturally moving around the set, it was difficult to get the crew members to make eye contact with us. We had to initiate it. And so we very eagerly, when it came crafty, take a break time or lunchtime or during pre-production time, I would just go sit down at a table and join whomever was there. And sometimes they were just giddy because the producer is sitting here with us. And but there was one guy, he probably weighed 250 pounds. He was so strong, and he was carrying around shot bags and weights and setting up jibs. And he would just pick things up. But this guy was sweating profusely. I went and I saw him working, and I grabbed some water. I handed it to him. Man, that guy became my best friend. And every day at the end of the shoot, and this is not customary as I understand it, but he would come give me a big bear hug and say, the only English words that he knew were, I love you. And all of that grew out of bringing this kid a bottle of water. And then, of course, I continued with that. But the example that was set there changed the flavor of this crew. And at the end of that shoot, we were told these crew members had never seen or experienced the kind of engagement from the producing and directing team that they did with us. And they were professionals. They knew their jobs. But they hadn't experienced that kind of love. And so, again, putting Christ on display in serving people is a really important part of our jobs.
Yeah, also running towards the problem. Figure out if there's a problem that needs to be solved and see if you can help solve it is a great way to become a producer, because we're problem solvers. So wherever you're at, whatever you see, if there's the hardest job, we've heard other people talk about it, but it's like Jim McBride. He would talk about on a panel like this the previous year, how he looked for the hardest job when he was working in several different places. Like, I want that one. I want to handle that. I want to solve that. So try to identify situations and find a solution for them. Also, like Josh Walsh, heard him speaking not long ago, and he was talking about how he started. And, one of the movies he was working on, they were like, well, we need somebody to do background. He's like, I'll do it. They're like, no, you don't want to do this. He's like, well, if it's a need, that's what I want to do. And so just trying to identify where the need is and serve there, that's going to move you up the ranks.
Just a quick add-on to that, identify them preemptively and attack them preemptively so that the rest of the team is never aware. So the foresight to anticipate what's around the corner is really, now, my belief is that comes mostly from life experience. And so, you know, I'm old enough that I have a whole lot of it. And, but that preemptive problem solving or getting in front of those problems is really important.
Josh Pittman is a fountain, and he's one of the first hires that people want on a movie because he's so good at what he does and so pleasant to work with and loves the Lord. And he's moving up the ranks to be a producer. But when we were working on The Forge, he was helping us with locations. And the robot scenes and all that whole factory that we had is a company here in Albany, Georgia. And the guy who was helping run that factory came to us at the end of the movie, and he said, "You would not have completed this movie if it weren't for Josh Pittman." Because he said the stress of production was so heavy, but Josh was so gracious in communicating and solving problems. And like you said, seeing a problem, preemptively solving it, and being kind to us and respecting our wishes. He said, this movie would not have been completed if it weren't for that guy. So same kind of attitude. You see the problem, but he's already, as Josh is moving up to be a producer, I'm like, yeah, he can be a producer.
All right, next question. When should you stop doing work for free?
When you open up the fridge and there ain't nothing there.
The first reason to do it is to gain the experience, the skill, and the mentorship. But we still do work for free. And some of it is because we're working for a cause, but the work I'm referring to is the work to gain the confidence of those with whom we want to engage or become partners with. And so we continue to. I don't see an end to that anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I would say personal experience, I started working for free, and I don't think there's a problem with that. Let other people find your value instead of trying to assign your own value. Kind of goes along with that, let others praise you and not your own lips. I think once you're valuable and somebody wants to bring you on and they say, hey, can you come work on my movie? You evaluate before God, is that something I'm supposed to work on or not? And if he gives you a yes, then you figure out, hey, what can I be paid or not? But don't make your decision based on the financial.
Justin, I'd like to ask you a question, if I can do a lateral in light of all of this. If somebody agrees to a rate and then they show up on set and start saying, I'm not going to work for that rate, I want more, that's not a good thing. That does not look good. But if on the front end, when you're negotiating and they do need to be paid, how do people ask? Like, we could find someone who could do this for free, but what would be the right way to ask on the front end?
I think the way where I want to go to bat for somebody, it's when they say, oh yeah, that rate, I could work for that rate, but it would really bless me and my family if it was this. This would bless me and my family, and I wouldn't have to worry about it. And then I look at it as like, man, I'm going to fight for that guy to get that rate, versus, well, I deserve this. I'm not doing it if I deserve this. So those are red flags usually. I mean, I've never, and I want people to know, like, whenever I'm calling with a rate, it's because it's what we have. It's not, I'm not assigning value to you based on the rate that you're given. It's just, hey, it's a low budget film, and this is what we have, and this is what I can afford. But then when they come back and say something like that, man, I'm going back to the books and looking, where do I have any extra money? How can I take care of this guy and his family?
Sometimes we'll have people, and they're like, I really want to work on this film, and but I got to pay the bills, or I got to feed my family or whatever. Sometimes it's a situation where they say, if you can handle my lodging and my food, I'm willing to work for minimum wage, or for free. If you can pay me something, that'd be great. But if you can handle my lodging, my food, because there are producers out there that will grind you to powder and pay you nothing, and you can't even feed yourself during the whole time, and that's not right. That's just not good. They're not doing their job. And so I agree, there's times that we work for free because the Lord's meeting our needs some other way, and we can step in and say, I believe in this cause. But if it's a situation where you're young and have nothing, I think it could be appropriate to respectfully say, here's what I need. I do want to work on your project. And then trust the Lord and pray, and the Lord will take care of you.
Awesome. Okay, next question. What does the relationship look like between the producer and the director? Do you operate with healthy conflict between yourself and the director?
The saying, if there's no tension between us, we're redundant, I think is really legit. That doesn't mean we don't want to be arm in arm with people with whom we see everything. For John and me, we are very, very different from one another. He directs, I produce, and we see everything through different lenses. What we believe is we refer to it as we're on the same wavelength, but I'm looking through a different lens, figuratively, than he is literally sometimes. And so if we can reach the same conclusion easily through our varying lenses, that's beautiful. That's great synchronicity. When we don't see the same things, that's when we need to occasionally butt heads, but do it out of sight of the rest of the team, and we work it out. When it comes to creative issues, I'm deferential to the director. When it comes to business issues, he's deferential to me. And that's how we work. And I know that's not true of but that's how we work.
I love that we have like a husband-wife producer-director duo and a brothers-director duo. It's like it's just a fun dynamic. Stephen, do you want to talk about your?
Yeah, so if you think about the director, they are focused in on it being as good of a performance and a good of a story. They're thinking about that high-quality movie, and they don't want a lot of boundaries. You know, they want to have the freedom, they want to have the resources, the time that they need to do it. So there's that pull in that direction. The producer is thinking about time. They're thinking about budget and money. They're thinking about the resources that are available, the people, and they want the movie to be good too, but you've got all of these things that are not all pulling in the same direction. It's like the string on the kite. You know, you got the wind one way, the string the other way, and boundaries create a great opportunity for prayer and creativity. And so boundaries are really, really good things. So to be able to tag team together where there's, just be mindful that the leadership is trying to constantly tweak the balance between the needs of the people and the crew, the time that they have, the limited money. There's a lot of limitations, and they're trying to figure out how to pull off something with excellence. And those feel like they're in opposition to one another all the time. So serving, like the producer needs to be thinking, how can I serve that director? And that's the way I think. How can I lower my brother's stress level, give him nothing to worry about so he can focus in on the story, and he's in the eye of the storm, and behind the scenes, we're handling problems that he doesn't even have to know about, and we're laying tracks in front of him on a moving train so he can show up, and places are prepared, crews fed, all those kind of things. But the directors, as Aaron Burns would tell you, as he's learned, he's been in both roles, directors have to be very mindful of all the limitations and everybody else that's going on. And so they need to also be servant-hearted towards the crew and the producers. And it creates maturity in your leadership that you're not just thinking about what you want, that you're considerate of so many other factors as you make decisions.
John and I will often enjoy, whether it's the end of a production day or at the end of the production at large, debriefing, where I can tell him all the stories of what was going on behind the scenes that he was oblivious to throughout production, all the fires we were putting out, all the interpersonal challenges that came up and were resolved, and then he can tell me about what's going on in set that I couldn't see, the challenges that he had or the victories that he had in engaging. So we really, we're in the same space, but we are not in the same world. I think world's probably the wrong word there, but the fun of debriefing reflects what you were saying.
There's a story about how Steven Spielberg, when he was young, was just busting through budgets. When they shot Jaws, he is going way over budget, way over time. He's just out of control for his creative vision. And then George Lucas recruited him to shoot Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. And George Lucas sat down with him and said, basically, it's time to grow up. And he said, you can produce an excellent movie and stay under budget and do it on time, but you're going to have to be creative. and he put boundaries around Steven Spielberg, and it forced him to think outside of his box. There's a lot of smart blocking in that movie that saved them a ton of time in production, where you'll just see the same camera angle and the actors move around instead of having to flip it around and take more time and shoot the other way and set up for 2 hours. They would just move the actors a lot of times. But it's some of the best work Steven Spielberg has ever done because of those boundaries that were being put upon him, and it forced him to be creative.
Awesome. Okay, we're getting close to our time. We'll try to get through a couple more. What are the different types of producers you may need on a project? Creative, logistical, etc.
Okay. You need producers that add value, whether it's creatively. I've been on some great teams where we had producers that we defined roles for, and that was very important. So we're lifting each other's burden, which was great. So, you just get working producers, problem-solving producers, and problem-solving might be a creative producer as well. They think a little bit outside the box, but I would say I've been on projects as well where there are way too many producers, and there's 2 that are working and 6 that are, enjoying the coffee.
I like to think about who's going to complement the team well, because you're trying to build a team. So if you have certain strengths, you're trying to shore up the other areas that you need. So there's a lot of different areas. If you need to figure out all the different areas that need to be covered, there's casting, there's the crew side, there's the budget side, there's all these different areas. If you don't have any money, you're trying to do the best you can with all of that yourself. As you're able to grow your team, you're trying to find people that are going to complement the team to be able to grow that and do a better job. And it's just going to change a little bit project to project.
One of the challenges of multiple producers can be who's the decider? How do we make decisions? And for that reason, the role of supervising producer has emerged in some of our projects. So ultimately, we're trying to raise up people who are capable and competent, and we leave them to solve the problems until the solutions are either not obvious or there's dissension that isn't leading us to a singular place. And so supervising producer can be very passive until that moment comes, and then we step in and say, this is how we're going to move forward.
This is all so good, what they're sharing. Because Courageous was so difficult and I was the main producer, when we got to War Room, I was like, I need to build a team, and we work together as a team so nobody implodes. And if I were to get sick or go to the hospital or something were to happen, the team is competent enough to function without me. So I recruited Justin. I recruited Aaron Burns, because he had produced other movies by himself and had been imploded under the weight of some of that stuff. Gary Wheeler, who'd also produced other films, and Justin, Aaron, Gary, and I would make decisions as a team. I was the deciding vote if there was opposing opinions. But I realized Justin was wired he was so good at helping us build the team, set out the budget, line up the crew, those things, and solve problems on set. He was focused primarily on the financial side of things. Aaron, I noticed, was good with time when it came to planning out the schedule, do this first, do that first. He was good with casting, so I kind of supported him in that role. Gary knew the area and the region. And so just like David said, I started realizing the Lord provided the key people that would fill in the gaps, and we could lean on one another's strengths. So I would say, if you're a producer, if you can, build a team of leaders around you. There does need to be a deciding vote. You cannot have more than one steering wheel in the car. But you need to listen to the counsel of the other people if you're the Batman in that situation, okay, and you've got to make the final call, you need to still listen to Robin before you make that call, okay? Some guys are leaders, but they're more wired like Robin, and they can't make a decision under the pressure. They need to find a Batman who can make that call decision, and they'll support them in that role in that situation. But I'm a big fan. I've seen so many guys, they burned out their health, their faith, their marriages, their children in order to try to produce a Christian movie, and they did it. Too much was on their shoulders. It was like Moses under the weight of the people. So I'm a big fan of building a team and delegating and working together so that nobody dies, in the battle.
Awesome. Well, guys, we're at our time. We are out of time here. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you so much for answering the questions.
Awesome panel, you guys. Thank you so much for your insight, your experience, and your tips and advice. Okay, you guys, you know the drill, so we are in a moment going to get out of here very rapidly. Whenever you do stand up, please push in your chair so that others can get through all the tables. But let me make a couple of announcements really quick, really quick. So, and when you do leave, just leave your trash on the table. So this evening we have a special screening. The time is on the back of your badge if you need that. Go ahead and keep your name tags on. If you have a question on anything, see the registration table. They are the ones out there in the middle of the atrium. Also, this event is only possible because of the filmmakers, the attendees, and the sponsors. So if you could check out the sponsors' tables out there, we would appreciate it. See what they have and see what they do and support them. And then 10:30 a.m. in Faith to 11, there's going to be a Young Filmmakers meetup. So if you feel like you're a young filmmaker, you are welcome to go up there at 10:30. And then tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., we have another special showcase for you guys. That one's going to be in the Worship Center, also on your badge. And then as you watch films, remember to keep an eye out for your favorite one, audience choice. If you want to vote for the audience choice, that is on the back of your badge. Be sure you get the app. And then next year, y'all can already buy tickets for next year. That's going to be March 9th through the 13th, same place. So go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to give a 30-second countdown. Grab your stuff, push in your chair, and head out these doors. Go. I've got that timer on. We got about 20 seconds. Take the conversations to the hallway. Y'all are rocking it. Nice job, nice job. Grab your stuff, grab your stuff. Keep walking, keep walking. Good job, you guys. Keep going. I see the lines. If those folks in the hallway could just keep walking and allow the other folks to walk out, that would be wonderful. Y'all are rock stars. Even if you plan on staying in here for the next block, please go ahead and remove yourself from this area so they can totally flip the room for you. And then you can come back in when we're almost there. Thank you. They've got to flip the room. Thank you. You're good. You're good. Good job, y'all. Yeah. I'm supposed to be resetting some chairs. I don't know if you meant these chairs. I don't know. No. She said after the panel, reset chairs. Okay, probably all these because they're probably going to be in like theater seating for the next screening. Okay. That's my guess, but I don't see anyone doing that yet.
My first time being a volunteer.
Oh, cool.
So
Who asked you? Do you know?
Crimson.
Let me find one of the ladies. Jonathan, do you know when we say flip the room, he's got to set up some chairs. What does that mean?